Hi, I'm Carrie Zahar. I am business partners with Mitzi Diane, and I do a lot of the back-end work related to data analytics. I was in one of the Facebook groups the other day, and somebody asked a question about Excel, and it occurred to me that maybe there might be a lot of you out there that would have similar questions to Excel. So what I decided to do today was put together just a really quick training of a way that you can stack leads with simple Excel features. And I will caveat this by saying there are some more sophisticated, faster, easier ways to do it, but this is the one that is the most simple that you can use without buying any additional software, and you can use standard functions that are in Excel, and it still doesn't take you very long and saves you tons of time. So let me go ahead and share my screen and take you through a quick way to stack a couple of different leads on top of each other. So what I have here is two different lead lists. So the first one is code violations from February of 2019. This is old data. And then we have some city liens from February of 2019 as well. And obviously, when you're going after potential leads for purchase, the more distressed the property is, the better off you are. And I wanted to show you how to figure out which properties are the most distressed by seeing which properties are appearing on both lists. So as you can see, the lists look different right now. So this list, for example, the addresses are all together. And whenever we come to code violations, the house number is separate from the street name. And so right now, if we were to try and compare these two, it would be a very manual process because it's apples to oranges. The data doesn't look the same. So the first thing we would need to do is get the data to look the same. And then we can use XLOOKUP, which, if you're familiar with Excel, it replaces VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and index match. But essentially what it does is it can take information on two different lists and tell you where your matches are. So I'm going to show you some quick ways to do that. I also want to point out one more thing. I've already identified the matches, but I'm going to take you through the process. But I wanted to show you what one of the matches looks like before I can get started, because it's going to be important for you to see how your data can look different. So this one, let me add a filter here real quick so I can filter for the match. I highlighted it green so I can easily find it. So this is one of the matches that I know is going to come up when we run our analytic. And this is 1719 Hayes Street. And this is 1719. You can see I have it highlighted over here, Hayes Street, but it also says and GE. So even if I had the house number connected to the street name, it still wouldn't show up as a match because there's more on the street name, and the street names aren't exactly the same. So I'm going to account for that as well when I show you how to do this analytic. So let me go ahead and remove the filters here and go ahead and get started. And I have a couple of hidden columns that I'm going to unhide. Oops, I hid those. I'm going to unhide. These are the steps that I want to take you through today on how to first clean your data and make sure that your data is actually able to be apples to apples. And then I'm going to teach you how to do the XLOOKUP to look for the matches. So the first thing I want to do is get my house number to be in the same field as the street name. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the feature in Excel, concatenate, and you can either use concat or concatenate. And whenever I start typing, and it's really important to put the equal sign there first. The first one that comes up is concat, so I'll just use that one. And I know I want to combine that number, that with this street name, and those are the two fields that I want together. So when I hit enter, it combines these two. And then if I come over to this bottom right corner and I get the plus sign there, I can double click it and it'll take that same formula all the way down to the bottom of the table. One thing to note is it looks like 528 Gold Street right here, but if you look up here, this is what is actually in that cell. It's the formula I just wrote. Well, I don't want to do comparisons on formulas. I want to do comparisons on what's actually in the cell. So I'm going to copy all of this data and I'm going to come to this column, which I created, which is just for my values. I'm going to do paste, but I'm going to wait till I see just the values. If you look, you can see how what I'm highlighting has a little pop-up box that says values. So I'm just going to paste the values there. And if you can see now, what's in the cell is actually the street. It's not the formula, which is what is in this cell. And in order to accommodate for the fact that the street names look different in the long run, oh, you know what? I need to remove spaces first. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything. I use the Control Shift and down arrow to highlight that entire column. But you can also just use your mouse and click on it and scroll down to that. And now I'm going to use the Control Find and Replace. So what I want to do is I want to find all spaces. So I'll put a space right there, and then I'll make sure I don't leave a space below. So I'm going to take every space in here and delete it out. And the reason that I want to do that is because this is another way that addresses can be written separately. Some people will put random spaces at the beginning before they start typing, or they'll put an extra space at the end. And if you're doing a comparison, Excel isn't just looking at the text, it's also looking at spaces. So you want to make sure the spaces are gone so you can truly catch all matches. So replace all. And so I just deleted, spaces 295 times. So that was a really fast way to do that. Let's come up to the top. And now I want to make sure that I'm only using enough of the address that I need to really do the match. So I can reasonably assume that most addresses have about 4 to 5 numbers in them, and then a street name. So if I go about 4 to 5 numbers in, plus maybe the first 3 letters of the street name, that's going to be unique enough, but not so much that now I'm allowing people that might word it differently to mess up my address. So what I'm going to use another formula, and this is the mid formula. There's lots of different ways you can take the first part of a string of text, but I'm just using the mid formula because I like this one. And so mid means I'm going to potentially extract text from the middle. I just happen to be doing it from the beginning, which you can do that too. So the first number in the mid is where you want to start. And since I want to start at the first, I'm going to do that. So I'll put a 1 there. Oh, sorry. Let me back up. The first is where you want to look. So this is where you want to look. I'll add a comma, and I want to start with the first. And then the next number is how far into that string of text you want to go. And I want to go about 8 in, because that's going to allow for enough of the house number and the street name. I'm going to do close parentheses, and I'll copy that down. And then I want to go through the same process here, which is just get the values. And now I have street names that I can reasonably compare to the other lists that are just the house number and the address. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do something very similar to this list. Let me unhide the columns that I created here. And this one I've already done. Now you understand the concept, so I don't need to take you through the whole thing twice, but I didn't need to do the concatenate feature because these were already together. I just needed to eliminate the spaces, get them down to the first 8, and then get just the values where I'm not looking at formulas to do the comparison. So this data exists over here. So now what I want to do is I want to use the XLOOKUP to look for matches. And when it finds a match, what I want to see the cost. So I'm going to tell it to look for an address in here that matches the other spreadsheet. And when you find it, tell me what the amount of the city lien is. So that's our goal. So I'm going to do an equal sign, XLOOKUP. And there's lots of there's 5 different criteria you can input, and you really only need the first 3. And I'm not going to go into the details of what the other ones are because they're optional, and I want to keep this training simple, but we can go into that maybe potentially in another video. The first thing you want to do is click on what you're looking for. So you're looking for this address, and then you add a comma. And the next thing you want to say is, where are you looking for it? Well, I'm looking for it anywhere in this column. I don't know where it's in that column, but I know if you find it, it's going to be in that column. So I'll highlight the whole column. And then the third value is when I find it, what do I put there? And when you find it, please put the cost there. And then you close parentheses and hit enter. And that looks like an error message, but it's not. What that means is it didn't find a match for that address. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this all the way down. And you can see there's a lot of NAs where you might initially think you did this entirely wrong. But if I click here and I filter out the NAs, I can see that I have 3 matches. So for February 2019, on the code violations list compared against the city liens list, and this is for San Antonio because this is where I am, there were 3 matches, which means there are potentially 3, very distressed properties, more so than what is just on the city lien list. And if you notice, I did this comparison in less than 10 minutes. It didn't take very long, and I was going slower than I would have gone if I wasn't talking everyone through it. So this is a really efficient way to analyze a lot of data. Right now, the code violations list was about 290 rows, but it wouldn't have mattered to me if it was 1 million rows. I still could have done this analytic in the same amount of time. And even with 295 rows to do the comparison against, let's see how many are here, about 90 on the city liens, it still would have taken a long time to manually do this. So, as you can see, if you just get somewhat familiar with some simple Excel functions and you practice using them, which it's easy to do. You've never seen it before. It looks like it's hard, but it's not. You can save yourself a lot of time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So if you have questions, just drop them in the comments. If you're willing to send me your data, I will do a video to help you clean it. It doesn't have to be an analytic. It can just be around easy ways to clean your data and get it in a consistent format. I'm happy to do that as well, with the caveat of saying that if I help you, I'm going to go ahead and record it and share it with everybody. That way everybody can get the benefit. And feel free to send old data that is no longer on your leads. And yeah, let me know how I can help. Thank you.